Thank you for tuning in to the Practical Preservation Podcast. Please take a moment to visit our website, practicalpreservationservices.com, for additional information and tips to help you restore your historical home. If you've not done so, please subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, and also like us on Facebook. Welcome to the Practical Preservation Podcast, hosted by Danielle and Jonathan Kepperling. Kepperling Preservation Services is a family-owned business based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, dedicated to the preservation of our built architectural history for today's use as well as future generations. Our weekly podcast provides you with expert advice specific to the unique needs of renovating a historic home, educating by sharing our From the Trenches preservation knowledge and our guests' expertise, balancing modern needs while maintaining the historical significance, character, and beauty of your period home.
Today on the Practical Preservation Podcast, I have with me Andrew Cushing. He's the Bureau Chief for the Bureau of Historic Sites, New Hampshire State Parks. Thank you for joining me today.
Sure thing.
So tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I'm a New Hampshire native, and after I went away to college in graduate school for historic preservation, I was kind of thinking, I'm going to be really lucky if I can find something with my field that allows me to live in my small town and also practice my degree.
Right.
And I've been very lucky to have found a few jobs doing that. So right now I'm in the Bureau of Historic Sites for New Hampshire State Parks, which is just a subset of our parks system. So I oversee, depending on the list, 12 to 23 historic sites. And then also help make decisions involving any building or structure older than 50 years old in the park system, which, as the case probably with many state parks, it's most buildings. And now, bathroom buildings from the 1960s are a hot topic at parks. So
yeah, that's funny. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that Pennsylvania is still pretty, like, the systems are pretty segregated. Like, I don't think that the natural resource people have like historic person in that. They still rely on the state office of historic preservation. So I think that's great that New Hampshire has that way.
Yeah, it came out in a study several years ago so our park system is self-funded, operationally self-funded, which led to some big deficits a few years ago, over 10 years ago. And so one of the items that came out of this planning study was we really need to have a separate bureau for historic sites, because as an operationally self-funded unit, the Franklin Pierce Homestead was just never rising to the top of maintenance needs or programmatic investment. So the Bureau of Historic Sites was set up actually to get some general funding from our state legislature, which could supplement its operations.
Yeah, that really makes sense. There's a site in southern Lancaster County that they reached out to us to go look at, and it's an early, I would say it's probably maybe 1800s, but that would be the latest. It never has had a bathroom or a kitchen put in it. It's just a house that got put in the middle of a state park and they don't know what to do with it. And I'm like, well, it's in pretty good shape. Keep the squirrels out and, wait till you have the funding. That was my advice.
Yeah. It seems to be the bar for most of our sites. Keep the squirrels out and we'll get to it.
Yeah. The squirrels can be nasty. We're fighting with squirrels at our house.
I have raccoons that have infested one of my old houses that I'm not living in.
No. But yeah.
Their paw prints are everywhere.
So what brought you into preservation?
Yeah, so actually from a very young age, I really liked architecture. And my grandparents had a former tavern built around 1790 in my town. And so really from a young age, I was really fascinated by then what was, kind of hide and seek opportunities. But as I grew older, I think there's a certain ambiance that really captured my imagination with the paneling or the chimneys and the fireplaces and the wide board floors. So when I started looking in the field of architecture, I realized that my interest wouldn't really further the field.
Right.
Certainly there are architects who specialize in designing houses that look old.
Right. Yeah.
But in
And
rural
yeah.
areas, I think there's such a surfeit of old buildings that need help. So why build new ones that look old when you could just have old ones that could be saved?
Right.
So yeah, I think I just really grew into the field of historic preservation, and especially how it can be combined with community planning and economic development. It was just a nice marriage of a lot of interests for me.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that I think it's starting to get better, but I don't think the preservation community as a whole is great at touting, the economic benefits of preservation, where, and there are a lot, especially for the local economy.
There are a lot. I think sometimes it's really hard, and economists have tried. Donovan Ripkema was a professor of mine in grad school. But I think there's just a lot of intangible economic benefits to preservation that you just can't quite grasp in a study. But huge, obviously huge benefits for our downtowns.
I was gonna say, especially for the local economy, because it's not work that you can outsource, and it's very labor intensive. So
and we might get into this later, but certainly the need for our trades to move into the next generation, not for the trades themselves to move into the next generation, but for proteges of these slaters and window restorers and stonemasons. Huge problem.
Yeah, no, it is. Jonathan, my husband, started working with my dad pretty soon after we started dating. My dad asked him to come help for a summer while he was in college, and then he just never went back to school. But he worked. He's worked now in preservation almost 25 years now. But he's in his late 40s, and the majority of people, he's still one of the youngest people on the job site. I was just gonna say, I bet he's the baby. Yeah. And my dad retired. A lot of people that we knew that we could refer people to are retiring. So it's a problem. And I think some of it was that there was a push for everybody to go to college for a while. And not that isn't valuable. I went to college, but I don't think it's for everybody, and I don't think it's necessary to be able to have skills either.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, so I went to a rural regional high school where college was encouraged, but it certainly was not, everyone in our class was not aiming to go to Princeton.
Right.
And my father does auto body and my brother builds stone walls. And so there was always kind of this internal pull for me to do college or to work with my hands. And I've been sort of able to get kicks out of both, because I have an old house that I work on and I like restoring windows on the side. But then there are days when it's pouring outside, and I'm kind of happy that I don't have to do a patio like my brother is working on.
No, I completely understand that. Days when it's really cold, I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to work outside.
Yeah. And of course there are days where we have to answer a lot of emails and attend a lot of meetings, and I'd much rather be working outside.
Yes. So tell me about your work at the New Hampshire Bureau of Historic Sites.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting portfolio that we oversee. We've got everything, we have the rocks with the plaques on them, and a few statues, all the way up to structures. So we have a 1930s ski jump that was built by the Scandinavian community in Berlin, New Hampshire, which is it is our northernmost city, but not the northernmost town.
Right.
And so that's going through kind of a rehabilitation thanks to a dedicated friends group up there. A really terrifying site. I mean, I don't know if you like heights, but I start shaking in the knees when I get rung of a ladder. So it's really terrifying to be on top of this.
So you don't want to go do the jump.
And I mean, it's until the 1980s it was operational. We're hoping to get it operational again, but I just think of the people who would dare jump off this
they're
thing.
Very brave.
So that's one of our sites, which is kind of an exciting a bit of diversity. But then we also have a colonial mansion in Portsmouth that was home to our royal governor. And then we have Franklin Pierce's homestead. We have Robert Frost's farm during his Derry years, Derry, New Hampshire years, which a lot of scholars kind of credit that landscape for being an impetus of his best writing.
Yeah.
And then we have, some covered bridge. We have a covered bridge. We've got a lighthouse off the coast, or New Hampshire's tiny coast. We've got a lighthouse there. So it's a real interesting mix of places. And, one day I could be, off the coast of the Atlantic, and the next day I could be in the White Mountains looking at a plaster job at a mountaintop estate. So
that's really interesting. Like I'm sure it gives you a lot of diversity and a lot of no day is the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's always really fascinating. And as a Bureau of One, we don't kind of have an interpretation department or education department that
Right.
we can kick some of those things to. So yeah, I end up in the winter times is especially kind of our research and writing time. So to really kind of delve into that information and write interpretation plans and whatnot, it's a good opportunity to learn a lot about I'd say diverse history, but New Hampshire kind of has to define diverse different ways.
Right. But it's a wide variety of historic, or not historic, maybe that's not the right word, architectural styles, and there's diversity there.
Yeah. And I should add that we really do kind of fail in telling some diverse stories. So one of the sites that we have it's the statue dedicated to Hannah Dustan, who was a colonial woman who in 1694, I'm forgetting the date.
I don't remember numbers, so it's okay.
Yeah. So she was taken captive from her home in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and brought somewhere to New Hampshire along the Merrimack River, where she retaliated against her captors and ended up scalping 10 Native Americans, including 6 children.
Oh, goodness.
And in 1874, kind of at the tail end of this Manifest Destiny era, we dedicated a statue to her. And so now, kind of post George Floyd,
Right.
A lot of kind of racial reckoning in America, we're looking at the statue, and it's not very it's not accurate, first of all.
Right.
It's not sensitive to the Abenaki in New Hampshire, where we really don't have any statues or commemoration of.
Right.
So this is kind of our one site where we're looking at, we should do better. And it is tough. It's really tough to have those conversations. And I think,
has there been pushback? Have there been people who want to leave the statue up?
yeah, so from the get-go, we've tried to incorporate. So Hannah Dustan was a prolific childbearer. So she has a lot of descendants, and her family has been involved in some of this decision-making. The Abenaki community is not a monolithic block. So
Right.
Some have said, the statue just has to go. It's a stain on our history.
Mhm.
And we've had some who said, well, maybe it can stay, but we can reinterpret it, or we can do better about an additive approach.
Right.
So, and then you add kind of a department with no money. And so you want to do the best thing.
Right.
But it's these things are hard when it's not just a New Yorker piece.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think that my default would be to try to tell the whole story, whatever that story is, rather than to try to just say we're not going to interpret it at all. We're just going to take it down and put it in storage. I think telling the whole story it gives people something to reflect on, something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it can be done right, and if it can be done kind of honestly and wholeheartedly, I mean, I think having something there that forces you to think about why this is wrong or why this is incomplete can also be powerful. So we're trying to figure out how to do that.
That's
right.
A challenge. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think it's a challenge that a lot of historic sites and organizations are working to be more inclusive, but it's hard. It's hard to have those conversations. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think it's hard too when our field is not historically diverse. So we're being forced to think about it, and you hope that it then forces us to include more voices in our decision making.
Yeah. No, and I think that that's great that you brought all of those people that would be indirectly but directly affected, and because I think that that's important to hear their opinions also. Yeah, I think that's really, really a good thing. I don't have the answer for you. But
I was really hoping for an answer from you, but next time.
Yeah. Well, I don't have it. I don't have an appropriate answer.
Okay, yeah.
I was thinking maybe you could like reenact the massacre. No.
Yeah. What's really interesting is, well, this is less interesting, but one of our historic sites is the Weeks Estate, which is this mountaintop estate in northern New Hampshire, and it's named for a New Hampshire boy who went to Massachusetts and became a congressman and a mayor and whatnot down there, and ultimately Secretary of War. And he actually lost his second Senate race in Massachusetts because he opposed women's suffrage, and that had become unpopular at that point. And so it's kind of this year being the centennial of women's suffrage, thinking about, do we mention that to people, and say, we're celebrating this man's accomplishments through passing the Weeks Act, which allowed for the creation of the national forest east of the Mississippi. But also as a human, he had some faults too, or he was not necessarily faults, but he wasn't with the times.
Right. He was definitely more traditional. No, I think that those things are definitely the things that, because people, I think the more that I like learn about history and about people really haven't changed that much. Like I have a book that's like classifieds from the Lancaster newspaper from the late 1700s. So it's like, I got it because it had a lot of runaway slaves, because I was researching slavery in Lancaster County. So it has runaway slaves, runaway apprentices, and runaway wives. This is the theme of the book. And, and it's like, and it's just different classified listings. And it was their Facebook. Like there was one, the guy's like, I don't know why my wife left. I'm sure he did. I don't know why. I don't know why she left, but I'm not paying for anything else for her. He put that in the paper. And like, and it was just like, they were running down the newspaper to make sure people had their side of the story.
Yeah.
People have not changed much. And I think to tell the whole story, like, so he did really good things. He helped, conservation, but then on one issue, he was really out of step with where we are now and really where people were even then. And I think that that's important to see the full picture, because people are human and make mistakes. I mean, the conversation around the founding fathers and, the tension there with them calling for liberty for all, and most of them owning slaves. And fathering children with slaves, and all of these things. I think that instead of just pretending they were perfect, if we talk about them as humans, it actually makes them more relatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people haven't changed that much. That book is hilarious. It makes me giggle when I read. The one that really made me laugh was it said, if he said that his apprentice ran away, he's lying, because he told his apprentice to leave. I was standing there. So people are all the same. Yeah.
Well, one of my first, I've written quite a few historic register nominations. And schoolhouses are always really interesting because, first of all, there's just a lot of information about them in town reports. But the comments from parents and teachers and school boards in 1882 are the exact same as they are now, complaining about, kids being tardy or absent from school all the time, teachers demanding that parents speak nicely of them at the house because it doesn't help them instruct their kids if they're being spoken poorly of back home. Towns complaining that schools cost too much, and schools complaining, well, we have broken windows and no water, so you have to invest in education. It's just really
Right.
interesting that
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's just the technology changes, but people are the same. We
yeah.
haven't changed that much. I had reached out to your Nora did about the presentation that you did for was it Historic New Hampshire about house history. So what can you find out when you research house history?
Yeah. So one of my colleagues in New Hampshire and I do occasional presentations for the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance, which is our statewide preservation advocacy group. And house history has been in a popular topic for a lot of our constituents here.
Yeah.
And I think this doesn't quite get to your point, but I think
that's fine.
to give some back, I mean, everyone in New Hampshire and maybe New England, or maybe even the Northeast, maybe it's the same in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
They all think their house is 1780 and, it was on the Underground Railroad. And, there's certain kind of like a checklist of things that people assume their old house
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah.
And
there's
often
a lot of Underground Railroad stories here.
yeah, especially I bet
Yeah.
where you are. So it's fun to kind of just start with those misconceptions and work on like how to set that aside and look at the physical evidence of your house, and has it evolved, is it fairly intact, look at some of the social history side of your house, who lived there, how did they afford the changes they made, if they made them, and then what's how does it kind of tie into broader narratives, either about your region, your state, or the nation. And so I just think old houses can be really fascinating because they can tell us so much about kind of small details about a larger picture.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about Lancaster architecture regionally is that you can't use sometimes you can't use the checklist of this house style, because we're about 15 years behind Philadelphia. So whatever they were doing in Philadelphia, Lancaster was about 15 years behind that.
Yeah, and in New England, settlement patterns were not always how you'd expect. So just because you're in, say, interior New Hampshire doesn't mean that the earlier settlers were coming from Portsmouth on the seacoast. They might have been coming up the Connecticut River Valley from Connecticut, Massachusetts. So they're bringing those particular styles and tastes with them.
Yeah. We have that too. We have the Susquehanna River. You went to school in Philadelphia, so I don't know if you ever came over this way, but we have the Susquehanna River that separates Lancaster and York County. Well, York County and that side of the river is much more influenced by Baltimore than by Philadelphia. So it's a pattern and what was easy to get around, because you had a waterway between you.
Yeah. Yep. So you get it, obviously.
So do you, when you're helping people to research also, when you're doing the presentation, do you go through the different house histories, or how do you kind of guide them into finding this information out?
Yeah, so there are a few, just having a general knowledge of kind of architectural history and kind of development patterns in your area helps a lot. Right. But then there are some staples in the research world that really help pinpoint some dates for your house. So we have various kind of cadastral maps in New Hampshire in the 19th century that were made. So essentially just maps that have a dot on where your house is or was, with names associated with it. And then probably with any American city, the Sanborn fire insurance maps are really helpful for more urban areas or areas that have industrial development. And so I'm trying to think of other states where the 1890 census records were lost in the fire.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but would that does that have did the 1890 census, do they have information to house history information?
Well, so it's really, so some of these cadastral maps in New Hampshire are one is done in 1892. So it's really kind of the only stand-in for that census information that's missing. So It's kind of an unfortunate decade because it's a really interesting decade for a lot of development, because it's it's at the turn of the century, and a lot of these rural communities are declining, but our urban communities and industrial communities are ever increasing.
Right.
And so you kind of miss this really key decade.
To see where people are moving to and from.
Yeah. But otherwise, deed and census information is interesting. I would say house history is not often a very precise exercise. And I think I would say I've met a lot of people who really just want the exact date of their house. And sometimes you just can't offer that because you don't know if houses, have moved there or moved off site. Sometimes you have an L that was originally your house that was moved to the back, and a newer portion was built on the front. And then that L disappears over time. So it's never quite as clean as you want it to be.
And I know something that I noticed looking at outbuildings is oftentimes they reuse, like it looks like an early 1900s barn, but there's hand-hewn beams in there. So that those beams came from somewhere else. So like the reuse of materials can sometimes throw off those clues.
Yeah, or you might have an outbuilding on your property that has plaster inside it, and you're thinking that's kind of strange. Why would they plaster, the cobbler shop portion of their property? And it's probably because it was originally the L of the house or the house itself, and it got moved and kind of downgraded. So it's no site, very few sites are, or I should say every site is unique. Let me make it a positive statement.
Yeah, that is true. And I was talking to a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she was asking me about her property, and she said, well, were there building permits? I'm like, no, not until at least the 1920s. So we can't just go pull a permit and see what they did.
Yeah, I remember doing research for projects in Philadelphia, and there just being so much material because they did have building inspections and much better maps. And Pennsylvania is a far better kind of organizer of its deeds than New Hampshire is. And so I'm pretty sure this is true. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are kind of breadcrumbs at the end of every deed in Pennsylvania. So it'll say, even in the 18th century, see book 420, page 7.
So that you can go to the actual book.
Yeah.
The physical.
In New Hampshire, we maybe started doing that in the 1940s.
Oh, no.
And so it's a lot of going back and forth between the grantee-grantor index.
Yeah.
We're very slow on digitizing any of our records in New Hampshire. And so you really have to spend a day in the county offices, and that's been tough in the pandemic.
Oh yeah,
when they're closed. So it's
it sounds like a little bit of a struggle, but it's interesting that I guess I just would make assumptions that everybody does it the same, but all the states want to be independent and do their own way.
Yeah.
So what mistakes would you want people to avoid when they're researching their house history, or what would you encourage?
Yeah, I think it probably goes back to my first point, is to at least start your process erasing any suppositions or biases you might have about your house. If you were told by the realtor that it is a 1776 house and so-and-so war general lived there from the Revolution, take it with a grain of salt and prove that before. I mean, I've run into so many cases where good intentioned families really believe that the information they've been told either by their ancestors or whatever is accurate.
Right.
But then when you look at the data, you even just look at the building and you're trained to see, wait a second, that's a Greek revival, entablature, or these windows definitely don't reflect, an 18th century construction or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You could be really crestfallen, I think, if you find out that your house is not as old or special as you think.
A lot of things you can't really prove, like the Underground Railroad. There's not documentation. Just because you had like a cistern or whatever it was doesn't mean that was a hiding place.
Right. Yeah. A hatch down to your basement. Yeah. And I think that's tough too. If you just can't pinpoint, or especially, who built your house, that's really tough to prove. I was just actually, I'm kind of I've become this local guy in my area for salvaging windows or doors or anything from houses that people are tearing down, which is, it's kind of like being a funeral director for old buildings. And my barn back home is filled now with
Oh, I'm sure.
windows and shutters and doors. But this one house was a plank house, which
That's early then in New England, isn't it?
yeah, 1800 to 1830 is kind of the peak plank house building. And when they started removing the interior finishes, on the wall was scrawled with chalk, this home built by Justin, or I think Justin Campbell, 1820, the same year he got married.
Oh,
And that's kind of like that's the holy grail of house histories, is to have that really neat information.
that is.
I've only
It's
seen that
exciting when
once.
you can find things like that.
Yeah.
Really is. Yeah, I was picking up sash on Saturday, and as I was trying to get it all in the van around Jonathan's tools, I was thinking, yeah, I am the lady that like stops on the side of the road and picks up sash.
Yeah, we need bumper stickers that say "I break for salvage."
But we well, I'm sure you do too. We reuse the glass when we're restoring windows.
Yeah. Yep.
So is there anything else about house history that you think that you want to share, that maybe I didn't think to ask you about?
Boy. Yeah, I would say that, I don't know, this is not going to be helpful for listeners, but I mean, I've gotten much better at learning to read buildings, just through years and years of taking apart buildings, which is not what I recommend for people to also learn, but it just really connects you to building construction. When you can see the styles of nails change in parts of a house, or if you can see how wood is cut differently through different decades, it just kind of it improves your eyesight. I mean, you can just get a better sense and gut for how houses work, because I think the building, there's physical evidence that helps you date your house, and then there's, like I said, like the social history and kind of the paperwork side of things. And it's just really nice when those two collide. So you can see maybe in a deed change or whatever, a house has finally left the family that's had it for 50 years, and a new family takes over. And that
they're
also kind of
probably do
happens
upgrades.
Yeah, exactly. And then suddenly, there's a new kitchen, or the windows have been replaced to 2/2s, or a new barn has come. And then when you can then tie that to the agricultural census, and you can see that, in 1850, they started orcharding, and they started buying cows, or, milking cows. It's always a really kind of exciting moment when you get to kind of live it a little bit. You get to see that, these people are trying to invest in their property, but also trying to compete with like the Midwest farms that are just, New Hampshire just hemorrhaged young people around the Civil War time to the West.
I think that they were from from northern New York, or upstate New York, but I just read a book about the Ingalls family, from Little House on the Prairie. And they came from New England and went west. So it was the same time period.
Yeah, exactly. And they kind of kept moving west, if I remember. I mean, so they went to. I didn't actually read the series, but
they
my
ended
sister
up
did.
in South. They ended up in South Dakota, and there was another group of them that wanted to go further west into Oregon, which probably would have been better than surviving the droughts in South Dakota. But they were like, "We're not moving anymore."
Yeah, because they made a pit stop in Wisconsin.
Yeah, they did
too, right? Yeah. So a really good kind of national example, or local trend of national.
So
what am I trying to say?
That's interesting to me though, because the farms here, like even in Pennsylvania, are much smaller than they are in the Midwest. So I'm sure that more land and more space was a big draw.
Yeah. Really, really enticing, especially, I mean, the soil in New Hampshire is really kind of crummy. Or very little of it is productive and arable. So if you are in a family that has 7 other brothers who are interested in keeping on the family farm, and you're just going to be tilling around rocks and dealing with our cold winters, why not move to Ohio,
Yeah,
Indiana?
why not try?
Wyoming?
Yeah, try something new. Yeah,
Yeah.
That that idea of it'll be better. It'll be better when you get there.
Right.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that I would have liked that journey. But my dad's family went west. They came to Pennsylvania first, then they went to Missouri. But within a generation, they were on the Oregon Trail and going further west. And I wouldn't have wanted to make that journey. I'm glad I can fly.
Yeah, we know how the Oregon Trail went. We played that game.
Yes. Throwing my piano off the wagon.
Yeah.
So what and you kind of talked a little bit about it, but are there any other trends or challenges that you see in preservation?
Boy, no challenges. It's such an easy field. I would say trend wise, I think we are getting better as a field, telling more complete stories, roping in more diverse voices. The National Trust certainly seems to have made a concerted effort.
They are.
In how they fund projects and what stories they tell.
Mm-hmm.
And, certainly you hope, I think the challenge is doing it for a couple of years doesn't make a difference. Like, it has to be a long sustained effort.
Yes. Yeah,
because it's a generational shift that we need. So I
was thinking about that. Maybe it was last night. I don't remember. It was sometime over this weekend though, that I was thinking about this story. Oh, because there was in York County, there was a big uproar because the school board had banned a bunch of books. It made the national news, so they reversed it the next day. And it was on the news, and Jonathan and I were talking about it. One of the books they banned was about Rosa Parks. And I was thinking about like the stories that I learned when I was in school, 35 years ago, about she was just tired, she sat down. It wasn't that she was part of this whole movement and had been trained to do this. Like, it was just, she was tired, she didn't want to get up. So, it was very passive.
Yeah.
And so the way we tell the story really matters.
Yeah. And yeah, so
I do. I think that what we teach and what we tell, how we interpret sites, really does it. You need a whole generation to kind of learn that way, so that it's not shocking to them when they hear more honest accounting of the history.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like it doesn't sound very nice to say, like, this is also a business decision that we need to make. I mean, we're seeing attendance at museums and historic sites decline.
Right.
And as America diversifies, you need to start doing, if you want your museum to have better attendance, then you should probably invest in the things that people need to see want.
their own, they need to be invested in it. They need to see themselves in the stories.
Yeah.
And I think I heard it on NPR, but a third of the people at Yorktown were Black, either enslaved or formerly enslaved. That's not the vision we have of the Revolutionary War. To tell that story and to say from the founding, everybody was working together, whether they were equal or not, that everybody was at least in it together. And I think that's a much it makes people realize, though, this is my country too. And I think that's really an important lesson for everybody to feel like they have a stake in what happens.
Yeah, and probably kind of relate to that. I mean, the promises that were broken at those major milestones in American history. That's a pretty remarkable and sad thing for
it's
if a third of the troops were Black, to not deliver on some of the kind of the hopes that they were promised.
For another 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And even then it was rocky.
Right.
Well, I thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed our conversation. If someone's interested in reaching out to you, how can they contact you?
Yeah, so my state email is kind of long and ridiculous and has many things, so I can write that down for you. But I'm available by email or phone call.
Okay, email. What we'll do is we'll make sure that we have it on our website, and then people can just go to that where the podcast is and then click through. Let me see. What is your phone number though?
Yeah, so it's 603-271-3238.
Okay, very good. And I'll make sure your email is up also. And then if you well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciated it, and I enjoyed our conversation. I'm glad we were able to connect and do this.
Thanks for listening to the Practical Preservation Podcast. The resources discussed during this episode are on our website at practicalpreservationservices.com/podcast. If you received value from this episode and know someone else that will get value from it as well, please share it with them. Join us next week for another episode of the Practical Preservation Podcast. For more information on restoring your historic home, visit practicalpreservationservices.com.